welcome back to EDH Deck Building. I am your host, Demo, and these are 5 cards that I think should see more play in the Commander format. Just cards that I come across doing my deck techs, deck doctors, and various videos where I'm like, man, that card seems really good and doesn't see a lot of play. And sometimes it's because that card works really well in a specific archetype or with a specific commander. And sometimes it's because that card is just generally a really good card that I think people overlook. So let's start at number 5 with Search for Glory, 2 and a white, Snow Sorcery. Search your library for a Snow permanent card, a legendary card, or a Saga card. Reveal it and put it in your hand, then shuffle your library. You gain 1 life for each Snow mana spent to cast this spell. So I think the Snow theme throws people off of this card a little bit. The fact that you're gaining life when you spend Snow mana, the fact that you are looking for a Snow permanent card. Yes, definitely you want to put this in a Snow themed deck for sure, even though there isn't a lot of those in white, and that's probably why this doesn't see as much play as it should. It is just a fantastic tutor in general, okay? So if we just forget about the Snow permanent card, for which, of course, there are a lot of great Snow permanents that you might not realize are Snow permanents that you could search for. And obviously you can get those Sagas as well, so it's going to work in any Saga themed deck that is in white. But the legendary card part is the part that I think is really, really great. Obviously, legendary creatures are going to fit here. There's a lot of great legendary creatures you might want to get out of your deck, but there's also legendary artifacts that you might want to grab out of your deck, right? This is getting any legendary card, so you can get those legendary artifacts, you can get those legendary lands, right? Like that Gaia's Cradle, for example. This will let you go tutor for a Gaia's Cradle, but also let you go tutor for Planeswalkers, right? Because those are legendary cards. So even though it doesn't say this on the card, this is go tutor for any Planeswalker in your deck and put it into your hand. So it fits really great in a Super Friends deck as well. And it'll even let you go get those legendary sorceries, right? We have a few of those as well. So I can go tutor for my Urza's Ruinous Blast if I want to, if I need a board wipe. Actually is a very versatile card, more so than maybe most people would think. Coming in at number 4, Nicotay, 3 mana equipment. When equipped creature deals damage to a creature, tap that creature. As long as Nicotay remains on the battlefield, that creature doesn't untap during its controller's untap step. Whenever equipped creature deals damage to a player, that player loses 1 life and has equipped 2. So I've talked about this a couple of times on my channel, mostly in deck techs that I'm doing, because this card really does fit with a lot of commanders and people might not necessarily think so. There's a couple of wordings on this card that are particularly important. First of all, when this deals damage to a creature, that creature doesn't untap for as long as Nicotay remains on the battlefield. That means if it becomes unequipped, the creature dies, doesn't matter. As long as this equipment is sitting on the battlefield, that creature won't untap. Most importantly though, it is not necessarily combat damage. So if you have a commander that is dealing damage of any kind to a creature, right? I put this in the Brigid Underwhelming Commander deck that I did because I thought it was a phenomenal fit there. Going to deal 2 damage to all those attacking or blocking creatures, and if they don't die from that damage, they will stay tapped for as long as Nicotay remains on the battlefield. Any commander that is dealing direct damage to other creatures, this is a phenomenal fit. Also though, if you have a commander that is dealing damage to players directly, this is also a great fit. I have this in my Bralin deck. Whenever I discard a card, it's going to deal 1 damage to each opponent, and Nicotay says whenever equipped creature deals damage, again, doesn't have to be combat damage, to a player, that player loses 1 life. So what this does essentially is it doubles up my commander's ability. So every time I deal a damage to each of my opponents, they are going to lose 1 life as well. So if I have a wheel effect and I discard 7 cards, I'm going to deal 1 damage to each of my opponents, and they're also going to lose a life for each damage dealt. So they're going to lose 7 life as well. That's 14 damage gone, just like that. So any commander that is dealing damage through not necessarily combat means, but other means as well, and there are lots of those, this is a fantastic fit for equipping on your commander. Coming in at number 3, Goreclaw, Terror of Kal Sisma, 3 and a green, bear, 4/3. Creature spells you cast with power 4 or greater cost 2 less to cast. Whenever Goreclaw, Terror of Kal Sisma attacks, each creature you control with power 4 or greater gets +1/+1 and gains trample until end of turn. So of course this is a commander, right? You can build your deck around this guy. Not a very popular one. It's also just not a very popular card in the format in general. It's only currently in 1,326 decks on EDH Rec. That's not a whole lot. And this is one of those commanders that I think fits better in the 99 of a lot of decks than it does as an actual commander. By my research, there is over 200 commanders in the format that are green that have a power of 4 or greater. Obviously, that's a very very large group, and this card could fit in most of those decks, not necessarily all of them. For example, a Traxor Praetor's Voice, a green commander that has a power 4 or greater, that isn't necessarily going to be a great fit here because we are reducing the colorless cost. Now, if you cast it later after it's died, this will reduce that commander tax by 2, so it will help, but I don't know if necessarily it's a great fit there. It's going to be a better fit in any commander that has a really high generic mana cost on it, because of course, every time you cast, it's going to cost 2 less. And then as an added bonus, if you want to be attacking with that commander, it's going to get +1/+1 and trample as well if you attack with your Goreclaw as well. So it can be an extra good fit there. I definitely think this should be in more than 1,300 decks. It seems pretty good if your commander fits this criteria. Speaking of caring about your commander's power, not of this world, I just talked about this recently in my Underwhelming Commanders video with 2 of the different commanders. So 7 mana, tribal instant Eldrazi, all colorless. You don't have to pay any color here at all. So this is a card that can fit in any commander deck. Counter target spell or ability that targets a permanent you control. That is most certainly something that you want to be doing in a commander game quite often. And it is also essentially a colorless counterspell, which is good. Of course, 7 mana is a lot for a counterspell, but Not of This World costs 7 less to cast if it targets a spell or ability that targets a creature you control with power 7 or greater. So if you have a commander that has a power 7 or greater, this is just a fantastic option for protecting your commander. I had put this in the Zalto deck that I was talking about in my Underwhelming Commander series, because there's a commander that has a 7 power that if anyone wants to swords my commander or any sort of targeted removal spell, I can just cast this for free, because that is a spell that is targeting a creature with power 7 or greater, my commander obviously, and this is just a free counterspell. There are over 80 commanders in the commander format that have a power 7 or greater. That's a whole lot. Now, of course, some of them are blue, and you might not necessarily need this in a deck that already has blue because, of course, you have access to counter spells, but a whole lot of them are not in blue, and this is just a very nice answer to a lot of things your opponents might want to be doing, targeting your commander, especially if you have one of those really expensive commanders, right? If a commander has a power 7 or greater, probably really expensive, and once you cast it, you don't want to getting targeted with stuff because it took you so long to get it on the table already. So this is a nice, easy option. And again, you've probably tapped out to get your commander on the table. So now that you're tapped out, you have a free counter spell in case somebody wants to remove your very terrifying commander. I think this card should definitely be in way more decks than it currently is in. Really fantastic option if your commander has a 7 or greater power. And while we're on the topic of protecting our commander, Wirewood Symbiote coming in at number 1 this time. 1 green mana, insect, 1/1. Return an elf you control to owner's hand. Untap target creature. Activate this ability only once each turn. Well, why the heck am I talking about this card with regards to protecting our commander? Of course, this card is sort of infamous. It is in quite a bit of decks, but it's probably in the decks that are using it for what it is initially intended for, which is sort of untapping your mana dork elf so that you can tap it again for a bunch of mana. You know, you can really go off with this card a lot. It's used in those Yisan decks to untap your Yisan so you can use that again. It's used in those Selvala decks so you can untap that and go off. It's used in a lot of really powerhouse decks and a lot of busted combo situations. However, forgetting about all of that, this is a fantastic way to protect your commander, right? Forget about the untapping part. And by the way, the untapping part can be used on a creature that isn't even tapped. Just so you're aware, you can choose a creature that's just sitting there untapped and still use this ability to target it. So you're always going to have an option for activating this ability. In fact, of course, the Wirewood Symbiote can target itself with the untapping ability. The most important part is return an elf you control to owner's hand. So this is a phenomenal way to protect your commander. There are 73 commanders in green in the format that are elves. So this will work with any of those cards. Now, of course, a lot of those might already be playing this because you're in an elf tribal deck. A lot of elf commanders tend to be elf tribal, but a lot of them don't, like a Belbay Corrupted Observer. That's not going to be an elf tribal deck. A Dritz Do'Urden is not going to be an elf tribal deck. I assume it's not anyway. An Azuri Claw of Progress is not going to be an elf tribal deck. There's lots of green elf commanders that aren't going to be an elf tribal at all, where you might want to include this because it is the best way to protect your commander, in my opinion, okay? You're going to return an elf you control to owner's hand as the activation for this ability. So if someone casts a board wipe, I just activate this ability by returning my commander to my hand, or whatever else removal my opponents might have, so that my commander doesn't die to that removal, and then I can recast it on my turn. Even if your opponent has a stifle effect and wants to stifle this so you don't return your commander to your hand? Sorry, that doesn't work. Returning an elf you control to owner's hand is part of the activation of this. You're not undoing the activation of an ability when you stifle it. You're only making sure it doesn't resolve. So the creature that you're untapping won't untap, but your elf will still be returned to your hand. There's no way that I can think of that will stop this from returning your commander to your hand other than a split-second effect. That's the only one. Someone uses a very underutilized card in the format, Sudden Death, on your commander to kill it. That is the only way that I can think of that will prevent you from protecting it in this situation. This really is a phenomenal way to protect your commander from removal if it is an elf. And then untapping a creature, just a nice little added bonus as well. Probably should see play in a lot of those decks where you have an elf commander, especially if your opponents are going to want to try to get it off the table. But that is it. That is all. 5 cards that I just think you guys should maybe consider putting in a lot of your decks, depending on what you're doing or what your commander might be. If you are thinking of purchasing any of these cards, I have a TCG Player link. It is in the description below. Give it a click. It helps support the channel. But that is it for today, and thanks for tuning in.